Ellie De La Cruz, in his first 600 plate appearances in the major leagues, went 22, 61, 241 with a 33% strikeout rate. Connor Griffin last year, obviously in the minors, went 21, 65, 333 with a 21.7% strikeout rate. And to me, the idea that I can get Ellie De La Cruz with like 100 points more in batting average. Now, again, obviously, just because he did it in the minors doesn't mean it translates directly to the majors, is wild. And if I had a crystal ball, I'll stop talking in a second. And I could guarantee you that Connor Griffin is on the opening day roster for the Pirates and will be on the roster for all 6 months of this season. And the cards shall fall as they may. Where do you take Connor Griffin today in a redraft league?
Welcome to the Rotowire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson. Got my friend Rob Silver, former main event overall winner and regular off-season guest on the podcast. Great to have Rob back on the show. How you doing, man?
Doing well. It's earlier than previous years, which means if I make a right call, I can still point back to the episode. But if I make a bad call, hopefully everybody forgets about it before the season's over. No, it's great. I always love doing this with you, James. So excited to roll.
Yeah, the earlier we do it, the more we can potentially impact ADP.
We're about to mess some things up. Let's do it.
So I just wanted, this is kind of my first episode of the off season, sort of really talking about kind of strategy and setting the stage for 2026 redraft leagues. Been doing a lot of kind of dynasty prospect stuff, looking back on 2025, but this is going to be kind of all strategy, all sort of breakout controversial player stuff for 2026. And Rob, I asked like kind of for any initial sort of observations you might have about the player pool for 2026. Where did you kind of want to start with that?
Okay, so I'm going to take issue with your, it's good to just dive right in and go like right at your strength. It's like a war. You go right at the guy's like fortified fort. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to fight a war. So I listened to your amazing, as always, top 25 prospects for this year podcast. And I respect you so much, James, because, for lots of reasons. You're a great person and a great human being. That's most important. But I respect you so much because you're such a good high-stakes fantasy player. But you put it all out there. Like, this is your job, obviously. But you put it out there. But when you were talking about Connor Griffin on the top 25 prospects for this year, I felt like, and I don't want to do like James Anderson criminology kind of thing where I'm reading tea leaves and looks and feels to things. You said I'm higher on Connor Griffin than most people. And I think you wanted to say basically he is by far the best prospect for 2025, and you guys are all crazy. And I felt like you hedged your call because I think that you kept saying through the podcast, and you're right in lots of ways. Like, boy, the FBC crowd is so sharp, and they are, of course, sharp as a crowd, and so many sharp individuals that make up the crowd. But I think you wanted to like say, I don't know why you guys are so low on Connor Griffin. His ADP is roughly 275 right now in DCs, and it doesn't make sense to me. So Ellie De La Cruz, in his first 600 plate appearances in the major leagues, went 22, 61, 241 with a 33% strikeout rate. Connor Griffin last year, obviously in the minors, went 21, 65, 333 with a 21.7% strikeout rate. And to me, the idea that I can get Ellie De La Cruz with like 100 points more in batting average. Now, again, obviously, just because he did it in the minors doesn't mean it translates directly to the majors, is wild. And if I had a crystal ball, I'll stop talking in a second. And I could guarantee you that Connor Griffin is on the opening day roster for the Pirates and will be on the roster for all 6 months of this season. And the cards shall fall as they may. where do you take Connor Griffin today in a redraft league?
Uh, Probably around like pick 70.
Yeah.
Um, I I took him in the 16th round of my current DC that I'm in right now as my first shortstop. So, um, I mean, I think you probably did read kind of into what I was saying on that pod. Like Griffin is definitely like I went into this current DC sort of with the idea of Griffin was going to be my first shortstop, and I was going to build that way. I think that's a perfectly viable way to build a roster if you can get Connor Griffin. But now the problem is, um, I took him. I didn't take him at like his min pick, but I took him, above his sort of median ADP. And I assume everyone that kind of takes him in every draft from now until opening day or until we find word that he's not going to make the opening day roster, I assume he's just going to keep going higher and higher and higher. So in these snake drafts, um, there was a nice little 2 months there where he was extremely mispriced.
Yes.
And I will probably talk about some other shortstop prospects here in a second who might also be a little mispriced. But now we're in that stage of the offseason, Rob, where people are going to start putting these pieces together, and then it just becomes sort of a chasing this guy up the board type of thing between now and spring training. So, like I kind of like that idea of just looking at him through sort of an Ellie De La Cruz lens of just kind of giving people a rough idea of like the like, tons of steals, big time physical tools, and I think the reason that it took people a while to kind of really use a top 250, top 225 pick on Griffin is just this Pirates distrust. But I think the Pirates, their inability to do things well kind of actually works in Griffin's favor just because he's so much better than all their other players. It would seem illogical for him to spend any time in the minors next year. There's a lot of complications there, but yeah, I generally agree with you, and I think you generally you kind of read what I was saying a little deeper than I maybe said it.
Yeah, and like we'll get to Kevin McGonigal in a second. I just think that we will look back on this like 2 month window because like forget this podcast. I agree. Like there's going to be a drumbeat between now and March of every week. It's going to be a round higher, and people will look back saying, "Wow, that was like oh." I've heard stories from old folks about that one year you could take Mike Trout in the 28th round, and I didn't believe it was true. And now I look back at Connor Griffin, and maybe they were telling the truth. Like it's you can't compare all prospects to all prospects. You know this. This is what you do for a living. And it's not even from a real baseball perspective. I'm not saying that Connor Griffin is going to come up and be a Hall of Fame shortstop. I have no idea who he ultimately is from a real baseball perspective. I'm just saying from a fantasy perspective, for every like, I don't know, I guess Jackson Holiday, who's like, oh, a real nice player and still young and can develop into something. But what the hell is he for fantasy? Like these, we're ultimately just looking at statistics. We're looking at fungible guys who are producing statistics. It is so rare to find a guy who can do a 2060 with a good batting average. Like those guys just don't exist. They're top, not forget first round players. They're top five pick players. And
Right.
I agree with you. It is easy to be cynical. Like, so the Pirates are going to be cheap and play games and they're going to mess around. I think the argument is far more likely in a world where they are are being rumored to like I know the Kyle Schwarber to the Pirates thing is BS and it's just them trying to like create some positive noise and to like quiet down the players union and so on. But the easiest way, the cheapest way for them to create some momentum and some excitement going into this season is to lock up Connor Griffin for all his arbitration years, maybe buy out one free agency years and have him and Paul Skeens like that's enough to get some bums in. See, and the crazy thing is, and you talked about this on your podcast with Eno, um, The Pirates have a good enough rotation. Obviously, one of the two best pitchers in the world, but they have pitching depth down. If they could somehow get a league average lineup together,
Mhm.
forget a good lineup, just a league average lineup, then like Milwaukee obviously was a great team last year. I'm not saying that makes them better than the Brewers, but it's not. It doesn't take a crazy imagination for the Pirates to suddenly be a competitive team for a wild card spot in the National League quickly. Because I know we're going long on this. Um, Ken McGonigal, who's going earlier, which, as you mentioned on your top 25 pod, doesn't really make sense to me. I know he was like a hot at in the AFL down in Arizona. Um, I think all the same arguments apply. It's, if nothing, if anything, it is stronger because the Tigers have potentially this is their last year for Tarek Skubal. So their window, such as it is, closes real fast. As many good prospects as they have, if they lose Tarek Skubal, not they're not their team, the same team. So I think every team should try to put the best team on the field from day one, but if you're the Tigers, you need to be competitive right now because this window could close real fast.